Have you ever noticed that some men walk into a room and something shifts? Women lean in, they listen, they pay attention, without being asked to. And these men aren't doing anything obvious. They're not cracking jokes to get attention. They're not flexing their status or dropping hints about what they have. They're just there. And somehow that's enough. Meanwhile, there's another man in that same room doing everything he was told to do. He's being attentive. He's being generous. He's being available. He's putting in the effort that every advice column, every friend, every well-meaning person in his life told him would work. And yet something is off. She's polite, but distant. She's friendly, but not invested. She listens, but doesn't really hear him. And he can feel it, that invisible wall. He can't seem to break through no matter what he does or says or offers. And the worst part is he doesn't even know why it's happening. He just knows something isn't working. Here's what nobody tells you. Respect doesn't respond to effort. It never has. You cannot work your way into it. You cannot be kind enough, patient enough, or available enough to manufacture it. Because respect isn't a reward for good behavior. It's a reaction to something much deeper, something most men have never been taught to develop. And until you understand what that something actually is, you will keep doing more and getting less. You will keep showing up and being overlooked. You will keep trying harder and becoming more invisible. That ends today. Because what you're about to read isn't advice about how to act differently around women. It's about who you need to become when no woman is even in the room. And once that shift happens, respect stops being something you chase. It becomes something that follows you. There is a signal every man is broadcasting at all times. You don't turn it off. You don't get to pause it. Whether you're talking, staying silent, sitting still, or walking across a room, that signal is going out, and women are reading it. Not consciously, in most cases. Not sitting there with a checklist analyzing your every move, but instinctively, the way all human beings read the energy of another person before a single word is exchanged. And what that signal communicates is one of two things. Either you are a man who has somewhere to be, something to build, a life that is moving forward with or without anyone's approval, or you are a man who is waiting for validation, waiting for her to make you feel like you matter, waiting for external confirmation that you're enough. And the painful truth is that most men are broadcasting the second signal while trying to perform the first one. That's the trap. You can say all the right things and still broadcast neediness. You can dress well, stand tall, speak confidently, and still signal that your entire sense of worth is sitting in her hands. Because it's not about the surface. It's never been about the surface. Women don't respond to what you present. They respond to what you actually are underneath the presentation. And what you actually are is determined by one thing. What is your life doing when she isn't around? Do you have goals that genuinely consume your energy? Do you have a direction you are moving in, regardless of whether anyone is watching or applauding? Do you have standards for yourself that you maintain not to impress anyone, but because you have decided the kind of man you want to be? If the answer is yes, that signal goes out on its own. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to perform it. It just radiates. And when a woman picks up on that signal, something happens inside her that she doesn't even fully understand. She becomes interested, not because you said something clever, not because you looked a certain way, but because you feel like a man who doesn't need her to complete him. And that feeling is rarer than most men realize. Most men she meets are offering her the center of their world on the very first conversation. And while that might feel flattering for a moment, it never creates respect. It creates obligation at best and loss of attraction at worst. The man who earns respect without trying is the man who genuinely doesn't need her approval to feel solid. And the only way to genuinely not need it is to have something real filling that space already. Your mission, your growth, your standards, your direction, that's where it starts. Not in how you talk to her, in how you live when she's not looking. you could have the strongest foundation in the world. A clear direction, a growing life, real discipline in how you move. And all of it, every single bit of it, can be erased in 60 seconds if you cannot control what happens to you emotionally when pressure arrives. Because a man who loses himself under pressure is a man who cannot be trusted with anything important, and women feel that immediately, not just in big dramatic moments, but in the small ones. The way you respond when something doesn't go your way. The way your energy shifts when she challenges something you said. The way you handle inconvenience, criticism, or the simple friction that comes with any real relationship. These small moments are where respect is won and lost more than anywhere else. There are two types of men who fail at this, and they look completely different on the surface, but they are making the same mistake underneath. The first man explodes. He's the one who reacts to everything. Someone says the wrong thing, and his tone changes instantly. A situation doesn't go as planned, and suddenly he's tense, irritable, difficult to be around. He might frame it as passion. He might call it being real. But what she experiences is instability. And instability is terrifying to a woman who is considering trusting you with anything meaningful. Because if you fall apart over small things, what happens when something genuinely difficult arrives? The second man crumbles quietly. He doesn't explode. He collapses inward. He needs constant reassurance. He needs her to tell him things are okay. He needs her emotional support to regulate his own internal state. And here's the part that is genuinely hard for men to hear. A woman will give you that support. She's capable of it, and she might even do it willingly for a period of time. But she will not admire you for needing it. She will not look up to a man whose emotional stability depends on her, because in that dynamic, she stops feeling like a woman who is with a strong man and starts feeling like a woman who is managing a fragile one. And that is where respect dies. Not loudly, quietly, over time. The man who earns respect is the one who exists in the space between those two extremes. He feels things. He's not a machine. He's not cold or detached. But he is in control. When something goes wrong, he slows down instead of speeding up. He processes before responding. He addresses the problem without making his emotional reaction everyone else's problem. And the effect that has on a woman is profound. She relaxes in your presence. She stops bracing for the next reaction. She starts to feel that being with you is stable ground rather than unpredictable weather. And from that stability, from that feeling of genuine safety, respect grows in a way that no amount of charm or effort could ever manufacture. You become the kind of man she trusts, not just to handle situations, but to handle himself. And that trust is the beginning of deep, lasting respect. There is a behavior that feels like love on the inside, but reads as weakness on the outside. And it is so common, so widely practiced, so thoroughly confused with genuine care that most men never even realize they're doing it. It is the behavior of making her the center of your world, and then showing her that she is, constantly, through your availability, through your immediate replies, through your willingness to drop everything the moment she needs something, or even the moment she seems slightly distant, through the way your mood rises and falls based entirely on how she's treating you that day. It feels like devotion. It feels like you're showing her how much she means to you. But here is what she actually receives on the other end of that signal. She receives the message that you have nothing else, that your life outside of her is either empty or less important than she is, that you are orbiting her existence rather than living your own. And nobody, not a single person on this earth, respects what orbits them. We respect what has its own gravity. We respect what is moving in its own direction. We respect what would continue existing and thriving even if we stepped away from it. The moment you make a woman feel like your primary source of meaning, your main occupation, your emotional headquarters, something in her shifts, and it doesn't shift toward you, it shifts away. Because the pressure of being someone's entire world is not romantic. It is heavy. It is suffocating. and it triggers something instinctive in her that makes her want to create distance just to breathe. And then the worst part happens. When she creates that distance, the clinging man leans in harder. He texts more. He tries to fix whatever he thinks went wrong. He increases his availability to compensate for her pulling back. And every single move he makes in that direction confirms exactly what she was already sensing. That he is not a man with a life. He is a man with a fixation. Here is what actually creates the gravity that pulls her toward you. It is your ability to be fully present when you're together and completely absorbed in your own world when you're not. It is the reality that your life is genuinely full, not performed as full, actually full. Of goals that challenge you, of friendships that matter to you, of work that requires your real attention, of a personal standard that you maintain regardless of her approval or her mood. When she senses that your absence from her is because you are genuinely somewhere meaningful, something shifts inside her in the right direction. Your texts carry more weight because they aren't constant. Your time feels more valuable because it isn't unconditionally available. Your presence actually means something because it is a choice, not a default. That is where attraction lives. That is where curiosity lives. That is where respect finds its foundation in the context of romantic connection. Not in how much you give her, but in how clearly you demonstrate that you have something worth giving from. Everything you have built, every signal you send, every impression you create can be reduced to nothing the moment your words stop meaning anything. And this is where so many men bleed respect out slowly without ever noticing it happening. Because it doesn't happen in one moment. It happens across dozens of small moments that individually feel forgivable but collectively become a pattern that she cannot ignore. You say you'll call and you don't. You tell her you'll handle something, and weeks pass and it hasn't moved. You make a commitment in a moment of wanting to impress her and then quietly hope she forgets about it when following through becomes inconvenient. You paint a picture of who you are and what you stand for, and then your actual daily behavior tells a completely different story. And each time this happens, something erodes, not dramatically. She doesn't call you out on it every time. She doesn't make a scene. She just quietly updates her assessment of you. She starts factoring in that your words are approximate, that your commitments are conditional, that what you say you'll do and what you actually do are two different things depending on how you feel that day. And once that update is made, once she has stored that pattern in how she understands you, your words lose their ability to move her. You can say the most sincere thing in the world and she will hear it through a filter of past experience that tells her not to hold her breath. That is one of the most difficult positions to recover from in any relationship, because you cannot argue your way out of it. You cannot explain your way back to credibility. Credibility is only rebuilt through behavior, and it takes far longer to rebuild than it took to destroy. The man who commands respect through his word is not the man who says the most impressive things. He is the man who says less and delivers completely. He is the man who thinks before he commits, because he knows that his word is not just communication, it is currency. And he protects that currency because he understands that once it loses value, everything else he offers loses value with it. If you are not sure you can do something, you say that. If you know you will do something, you do it without needing to be reminded or followed up with. If circumstances change and you cannot follow through, you address it directly and immediately rather than quietly hoping it goes unnoticed. That level of integrity in your word is not common. And precisely because it is not common, it is extraordinarily powerful when a woman encounters it. It signals that you are a man who operates from a place of genuine self-respect. Because a man who keeps his word even when it is inconvenient, even when no one is watching, even when he could easily get away with not doing it, is a man who holds himself to a standard that exists independently of external pressure. And that standard, that self-imposed accountability, is one of the most attractive and deeply respectable qualities a man can possess. It tells her that you are the same person in private that you present yourself to be in public. And that consistency is the rarest thing she will ever encounter. There is a version of independence that most people understand. Your own place, your own income, your own schedule. And while those things matter, they are not what we are talking about here. Because a man can have all of those things and still be fundamentally dependent in every way that actually counts. Dependent on her approval to feel good about his decisions. Dependent on her mood to determine his own emotional state. Dependent on her presence to feel like his life has direction and meaning. And a woman can feel that dependence even when everything on the surface looks independent. Because real independence is not a circumstance. It is a character trait. It is the deep internal reality of a man who has a center that doesn't move when people push against it. It is the quiet certainty of a man who has examined what he believes, what he values, and what kind of life he is building, and has decided on those things for himself rather than waiting for someone else to decide for him. When a man has that kind of inner solidity, it shows in everything. It shows in how he makes decisions. He doesn't need to poll everyone around him before he moves. He considers relevant input, weighs it honestly, and then decides. And he stands on that decision without crumbling when it's questioned. It shows in how he handles disagreement. He doesn't collapse into people-pleasing when she pushes back on something. He doesn't get defensive and combative either. He simply holds his ground from a calm and grounded place, willing to reconsider if she makes a compelling point, but not willing to abandon his position just to avoid discomfort or to keep the peace at the cost of his own integrity. It shows in how he talks about his life. There is no seeking of validation underneath his words. He's not framing everything in a way designed to get her to confirm that he's doing well or making good choices. He knows what he's doing and why. Her opinion is welcome, but not required. And perhaps most powerfully, it shows in what he tolerates and what he doesn't. A man with genuine independence has standards not just for what he pursues, but for what he accepts. He knows the difference between flexibility and self-abandonment. And when something crosses the line of what he is willing to accept, he says so calmly and clearly and means it. Not as a performance of dominance. Not to make a point or win a power struggle. But because he genuinely respects himself enough to hold that line. That is what true independence looks like from the inside. And from the outside, from where she is standing, it looks like something she has rarely seen. It looks like a man who doesn't need to be handled. A man who doesn't need to be managed emotionally. A man who doesn't need constant direction or reassurance or validation to stay on course. And in a world full of men who are quietly waiting for a woman to give them a sense of purpose and stability, a man who already possesses those things internally is not just attractive, he is extraordinary. He becomes the kind of man that women talk about to their friends, not because of how he looks or what he has, but because of how he made them feel when they were in his presence. Like they were with someone real. Someone solid. Someone who was already complete and was choosing to include her in a life that was already worth living. Everything you have just read points back to one place, not to a strategy, not to a set of techniques you deploy when she's watching. Back to yourself. Back to the daily work of becoming a man whose inner life is so solid, so directed, so grounded that the external results simply cannot help but follow. Because this is the thing most men never realize until it's too late. Respect was never hers to give or withhold based on whether you performed correctly. Respect is a natural response to a man who has done the internal work. And that work is not about her at all. It is about you. It is about getting brutally honest with yourself, about where you have been broadcasting weakness while thinking you were showing strength, where you have been performing confidence while internally seeking approval, where you have been making her your purpose while telling yourself it's because you care deeply. The man who gets respect without trying is not lucky. He is not naturally gifted with some mysterious quality that others don't have access to. He is simply a man who stopped trying to get something from women and started building something within himself. He stopped adjusting his behavior based on her reactions and started living according to his own standards. He stopped making his emotional stability her responsibility and started taking full ownership of his own inner state. He stopped letting his word be cheap and started treating every commitment as a reflection of his character. He stopped orbiting other people's lives and started building a life worth orbiting. And the result of all of that is not a technique, it is a presence, a gravitational pull that people feel before you even open your mouth. A sense of solidity that makes people relax when they're around you because they can feel that you are not going to collapse, not going to react impulsively, not going to make their emotional comfort your hidden agenda. And when a woman feels that from a man, when she truly feels it rather than just seeing it performed, something in her responds that she cannot fully explain or control. She respects him. Not because he asked for it, not because he worked hard enough for it, but because he became the kind of man that respect has no choice but to follow. That is the shift. That is the only shift that actually matters. And it starts not the next time you're in front of her. It starts right now, in the decisions you make today, when no one is watching, when there is no one to impress, when the only standard you are answering to is your own. Become that man first. Everything else takes care of itself.